It's the 2012 African Cup of Nations, and in this segment of MTN Football Webcast, we take a look at Group A. Welcome to MTN Football Webcast. I'm your host, Brian Lee. Alongside me I have Dwayne Delocca. And Dwayne, looking at the teams in Group A, we've got Equatorial Guinea, the hosts, got Libya, post-Gaddafi era, got the likes of Zambia, surprise package probably for this tournament, and of course Senegal, one of the favourites to go all the way to the final. Tell me, Dwayne, how do you see this group panning out?
Well, Brian, certainly, I mean, as you mentioned, Senegal are one of the pre-tournament favourites, and they're the team that's expected to be really hot at this Africa Cup of Nations. But you look at this team 10 years on, you've got the likes of Mamadou Diang, Moussa Sow, Cisse up front, who I think scored around 15-odd goals in qualifying leading up to this qualification for this tournament. So they certainly have proved to be a really great three-pronged attack for this Teranga Lions outfit. I think, though, they're still a little way off from that great team of around about 2000 up to 2002, 2003. We had the likes of Henry Camara that led the line, Papa Bouba Diop, of course El Hadji Diouf at his peak at the time. So in terms of generations, yes, we're seeing a greater generation of Senegalese footballers coming through, but maybe not quite of the same quality we saw a decade or ago. They've got something to prove, but in light of the fact that you've got some of the giants of African football missing, this is a really great opportunity for Senegal. They've never won this tournament. They've got a great opportunity to do so in Equatorial Guinea and Gabon. In terms of the other teams that are playing in this group, I mean, certainly the likes of Zambia and Libya, another great matchup between them, because bear in mind, they were in the same qualifying group for the Africa Cup of Nations. Zambia, of course, ended up topping the group on the final day of qualification, courtesy of a goalless draw with Libya, a very bad-tempered match. But I think when you look at the Zambians, their build-up has been slighted by the fact that coach Dario Bonetti was fired, the Italian, I think literally a day or two after they'd secured the qualification, after that goalless draw with Libya, he was fired from his position. And of course the Zambian Football Federation then comes and brings back a coach who dismissed the team that back in 2010 said, listen, I've had enough, I'm out of here, and took up a deal with Angola because of the great deal of money that he was offered at the time. That left a very sour taste in the mouth of a lot of Zambians, and they're still not sure on over and on. He's a decent coach. He took them at least to quarterfinals of 2010. So they've got an opportunity to show that they've got ability to compete with the big boys. But have they gotten the ability to go all the way? Perhaps. Some are saying they're dark horses, but you need to find out if the mentality, if the psychology is right, because there's still a couple of players that feel there's a bit of pill to swallow after the return of the coach. For Libya, as you said, this is a team that managed to qualify in the most dire of circumstances. A revolution in the country. We all know what happened with Muammar Gaddafi, the former leader of Libya, yet only playing one qualifying match in Tripoli. They had to play the remainder of their home matches outside the country, yet they still managed to qualify, and that's a remarkable achievement in itself. Whether or not they're going to be able to cope with playing in the African Cup of Nations finals tournament proper and advance past the group stages, who knows? But they've certainly proved that they've got the character to do it, whether or not they've got the ability to do so. And then, of course, the host nation, Equatorial Guinea. Great deal expected of them, but this is still their very first African Cup of Nations, and they had to qualify courtesy of being hosts. They've got Henri Michel in charge, but also there again, he was coached, then he resigned, then he was persuaded to come back, and it's not been an ideal build-up, although they do have a draw with Cameroon to show in their build-up to the African Cup of Nations tournament proper. So perhaps there's signs of something happening, but to be honest, I don't see the hosts actually advancing past the group stage.
Right, Dwayne, you've spoken about the coaches of the respective teams as well as the politics involved inside the teams and inside their countries. But let's talk about the football. That's what counts. Tell me, who are going to be some of the star players in this group?
Well, let me start with the host nation. I mean, you look at Equatorial Guinea, and I think more than any of the actual players that they've got in their squad, players that are certainly looking to prove points in Europe. They've got a youngster from Atletico Madrid, Nsue, who's part of the team. He's only 18 years old, but he's a man that's expected to be one of the great young talents of African football. We hear this, though, about many players. Will he be able to shine on the African continent? Who knows? Javier Balboa, he's a player who was born in Spain, but a man who's been naturalized as an Equatorial Guinea player, as Equatorial Guinea, I'm sad to say, I want to do. In terms of players to look out for Libya, for me, you cannot look past Samir Aboud. This is a man who plays for Al Ittihad in Tripoli, but a man who might be nearing his 40th birthday, but certainly remains the stalwart at the back. He's the goalkeeper, he's the captain, he's the leader, and he's a man who'd only conceded one goal in the qualification campaign. Yes, maybe he's physically approaching 40 years old, but his mind acts like he's 20-year-old. He's athletic, he's incredibly quick across the park, and he makes good decisions at the back, and that's the sort of leadership that Libya is going to need in a tournament like this. Bear in mind, they're the only North African team never to have won this tournament, so there's a lot of pressure on them, and they're going to be feeling it heading into this tournament. I think the real teams you've got to look out for in terms of player talent is the likes of Zambia. I mean, the Katongo brothers are always outstanding, aren't they? Chris in particular. And then you look at the leadership at the back from their goalkeeping department. Kennedy Mwene, unbelievable player. They've got nearly 10 South African-based players in their squad. So many of the South African viewers will obviously pick up on a lot of the PSL-based players. But Kennedy Mwene, what he needs to do is somehow get over the mistake that he made in the 2010 African Cup of Nations. He's had a really good last couple of seasons in South Africa, and I think the fact that Free State Stars are really high-flying in the South African Premiership at the moment is very much owing to the ability of men like Kennedy Mwene, and that'll give him confidence going into this African Cup of Nations. But if you're looking for the star players, it's got to be that strike trio that I mentioned already with Sao, Cisse, Mamadou Niang up front for Senegal. They have been outstanding in terms of goal scoring and qualification. I think they'll still be the players to watch, not only in this group, but in this tournament.